Yo, what's up? Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. If you're coming from last week's video, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about how to buy vintage lenses, what to look for, and how to test them out once you have bought your vintage lens. So let's hop into it. First thing I wanted to do actually is just let you know what I'm shooting on. So personally, I shoot on Nikon lenses. I did a bunch of research into it and found that Nikon glass has a very long track record of just being a very quality lens, on top of the fact that a lot of videographers and cinematographers have bought these old Nikon lenses and modded them to make them a bit better fit for cinematography. I currently own a 28mm, a 35mm, a 50mm, and a 135mm. I also plan on getting an 85mm, and once I get that lens, I plan on getting all of my lenses and shipping them off to go get cine-modded, so I can, make them a little bit better for filmmaking. And again, that's me personally, maybe you need something different. Maybe you want to go with a different ecosystem. Maybe your client wants something specific. My best advice for this is to just do your research and look into what lenses would be the best fit for you. So with that out of the way, let's kind of talk about how to go about buying these vintage lenses. One of the really cool parts about this is that vintage lenses come in a lot of shapes and sizes, and they're very widely available. More often than not, you can find them in your uncle's garage, your grandparents' attic. Maybe your parents have an old camera that they've never used or haven't used in a very long time. You can go to eBay, Facebook Marketplace. You can look at a thrift store, an antique shop. Like literally, the places you can find these are endless. Now, that being said, just because you found the 50mm Canon FD lens that you've been looking for does not mean that it's going to be in the best shape that you expect it to be. See, vintage lenses, they are very old, which means that they have gone through their paces more than once. Maybe that Canon FD that you found, maybe it's been sitting in the back of the garage, not in the best kept conditions, so it has fungus or it has cracks, or maybe the focus gears are a little sticky. When it comes to buying vintage lenses, it's important to not only do your research to know which lenses fit your needs, but also do your research into who you're actually buying the lens from and if they took good care of it. Some of the most common things to look for when buying vintage lenses are fungus, cracks, if the focus gears are a little sticky, any of the aperture blades not working the way it's supposed to, so you can try to twist the aperture, see if the blades move. And the last one I can kind of think of off the top of my head is if the glass is radioactive. Now this literally has no harm to you. You can buy as much radioactive lenses as you want. I'm sure if you got to a certain point, it might be a problem, but like if you just have like one or two, it's literally not gonna mean anything. I actually have a radioactive lens, and what happens when it is radioactive is that it just turns the glass orange, so it kind of gives you a bit of a warmer tint. Other than that, there's really no negative impacts on it. It just depends on if you like that or not. You can actually buy a $7 IKEA lamp to correct that. You would just put the lens down, put the lamp on top of it, shine the light into the lens, and then eventually the orange would go away. Going back to that radioactive lens, I actually bought that lens and I should have done a lot more research into it. And if I had, I probably would not have bought it. So when I was kind of just starting out, I saw this lens, I saw that it was a 50mm 1.4. I was like, whoa, that's such a low aperture. I definitely want that lens, it'll allow me to kind of get into places I haven't been able to before. So then I met the buyer off Facebook Marketplace. I looked at the lens, I thought it looked great, came back home. And one of the first things I like to do when I buy these vintage lenses is just to slap them on my camera, because you can inspect the lens as much as you want. You can look at it forwards, backwards, aperture blades all the way open, all the way closed, but you're never gonna know what it actually looks like until it's on your camera. So I came home, slapped that thing on my camera, and all of a sudden I looked at the picture and it is so soft. It is so comically soft. And then I took the lens off, looked a little bit deeper, and found out that there's actually fungus in it, on top of the fact that it's also radioactive. Those were two variables that I just was not ready for. And despite those flaws, I'm gonna keep the lens and I'm gonna use it for certain scenarios. I wanted to kind of throw this in here too. Just because a lens has flaws does not mean it's not usable. And let me show you what I mean. Next thing I want to talk about is how I test these lenses once I get them. So let's hop onto the computer and kind of check that out. Okay, so a couple of things before we just hop into it. First off, I wanted to say this is a very unscientific review, so you're not seeing me pull out like a color tracker or some type of sharpness board. Personally, I want to try to test these lenses the way that I would be using them in a real world scenario. So right now I'm just set up outside. I have a diffusion sheet. I'm standing next to my house and just recording these, and I have them listed and identified through a whiteboard that I have. So here's the setup I got. I got this big shear right here trying to diffuse the sunlight from coming in because I have to shoot in broad daylight. One of the things I want to do is actually test these lenses in the daylight because that's probably where I'll use them most. And then over here I'm going to try to get some negative fill on
on me. But yeah, this is all the gear. This is kind of the setup that I have so far. I'm using the Blackmagic Cinema's camera 6K full frame. This is the Super Takumar 50mm. I'm gonna test it up against the Nikon one that I got. But yeah, I figured I'd use this as a base because that is another vintage lens that has a lot of funky characteristics to it. And yeah, I just wanted to test it out.
I am looking for overall sharpness. I'm looking for color rendition, and I'm also looking for like color casts to see if the lenses actually give color casts themselves. The second thing I wanted to mention is that I'm going to be using the Cineprint 35 film emulation on all of these. I'm going to take off the grain and the halation because those are both meant to subtract from a very clean image. So I'm going to leave those as base. I'm just going to apply the LUT, see how they look. I have the tendency to want to color correct everything, so I'm not going to do this with this. I'm just going to look at them bare bones with the emulation on it and try to see the differences and what I like, what I don't like, what I'm noticing. I'm basically just taking notes of what these lenses are acting, so that way when I get on set, I know how they behave and I know how to film with them. So yeah, with that, let's go ahead and hop into it. All right, so I'm currently using DaVinci Resolve to color grade all of this footage, and that's where we're going to be taking a look at it in. Okay, cool. So let's just go ahead and hop into this first clip. So this first one is kind of listed right here, but it's a Super Takumar 50mm lens. It's the one that I bought that is both radioactive and has fungus. So if you look at the image, you can also kind of see how fuzzy it is and how soft the image is. And that is purely because of the fungus. So when you open the lens all the way up, it tends to show a lot more of the imperfections. But then if we go to the next clip, you can see that when I stopped it down, a lot of the softness tends to go away. So each one of these lenses I tested at f2 and at f5.6. Now, one thing I'm immediately noticing off rip is just that it's so warm. It is so unapologetically warm, which, you know, if that's what you're going for, that's awesome. But, you know, that's just something to keep in mind. One of the reasons why I am going to keep this lens is because maybe I want to use this lens in a specific scenario where someone's in a dream or they're having like a memory flashback, and instead of trying to apply this stuff in post, I can do it in camera and then further enhance it in post. I just think that that's such a cool way to do that. These lenses have such unique characteristics and each one of them has a use case. It's just a matter of finding a place for it. So moving from the Super Takumar, we can kind of see like this is kind of the base. This was the lens that I was using for a while, but if we go ahead and go to the Nikon, we can immediately see that the color cast is gone. This is, in my opinion, probably the most color corrected of all of these lenses. This one produces the most true to life. Maybe it's a little cool, but the most true tone. All the colors here are super vibrant. If we kind of speed through this clip just a little bit, I think I'm just like a little bit out of focus, and that might just have to do with me moving and stuff. But like overall, great lens. I think this lens is fantastic. It's probably the 50mm I'm actually using at the moment. I can't, not enough good things can be said about this. So if we go to the next clip, we can see it stopped down at 5.6 and it is immediately just noticeably sharper. Noticeably sharper all across the board. This is just a phenomenal lens. I think it performs really well at 1.4. I think it performs well at f2, at f5.6. And if we go to the next shot, I think this is the 35? No, it's the 28. So you can also kind of see that it kind of has like a little bit of a greenish, yellowish tint to it than the 50. You can see the 50 is very cool. Then we go to the 28 and it warms up quite a bit. Again, I have not made any changes to this. You see the really hard vignette, and that's just because of the way that I had to put my ND filter on there. It's changed since then. I bought some other stuff for it, but just keep that in mind. That's not how it normally looks on the camera. And then if we go ahead and move forward to f5.6 on the 28, not much has changed actually. This lens looks like it stays pretty consistent the entire time. The only thing I can kind of see here with 5.6 is that, again, the sharpness, just a little bit more sharper. And then if we move on from the 28, we go to my personal favorite lens. The 35mm is my favorite focal length of all time. I think it's the most versatile. You can do portraiture with it, you can do landscapes with it, you can do wide shots. The only thing it kind of falls short on is macro shots, but you would probably just want to get a different lens for that anyways. So anyways, here's the Nikon 35mm at f2. One thing I did notice here is that it does seem to be slightly green. It does tend to show just a slightly green tint. At f2, you can see the image. It's pretty sharp. There is a little bit of softness here at the end. It's also just could be due to the shallow depth of field. Because if we go to 5.6, you can see that that goes away. The image is sharp, the colors are clear, even the green tint kind of goes away as well. So it might just be something that happens at a lower aperture. And again, this is a very unscientific review. I'm just taking a look right here at the Super Takumar again, and like, wow, that is just so orange. And then if we just go to 50 again, it cools up right away. These Nikon lenses, I've been shooting with them for, the past couple months. Phenomenal. They perform so well. These lenses do exactly what I need them to do. They are sharp, they perform really well in low light because they have such fast apertures. And then I was able to get them for a really good price off Facebook Marketplace. So it's kind of just a win-win-win. I really don't think you can go wrong with vintage lenses. I think at the end of the day, if you're tight on a budget, if you need lenses that perform really well, but you don't have all of the money in the world to buy those expensive lenses, vintage lenses are a fantastic option for you. Another thing I would also say too is don't let these tests be the last thing you do with them. I shoot with these Nikon lenses literally everywhere. I'm a big proponent of carrying my camera with me in the dumbest of places. We'll be at a grocery store and I'll have my camera with me because maybe I want to see how it performs with fluorescent lighting. And I don't know how these lenses perform that way, but that's something that I do need to know because maybe someday I'll need to use these lenses in fluorescent lighting. So just the one thing I cannot stress enough is when you get these vintage lenses, it's important to stress test these in every way possible. Take them with you to the grocery store, to the food truck where you go get food. Take them with you to your parents' house, to your grandparents' house. If you're going to a baseball game, just take the lenses with you, see how they perform in many different scenarios, because that's the only way you're going to be able to get very familiar with these lenses and also just know their quirks, know which lenses to use. Maybe you decide to buy like 15 vintage lenses and they all perform differently. But yeah, I think I'm sort of rambling now, so I'll go ahead and end the video. If you guys found this at all helpful, let me know down in the comments below. If you didn't, also let me know. If you guys have any other tests that you guys have done before, go ahead and leave those in the comments down below too. I am very curious. If there's any way for me to improve what I'm already doing, I am all ears. So yeah, with that, I will leave you guys. Bye.